courtesy of the Draymond Green show, Kevin Durant is willing to participate in a $1 million one-on-one tournament during the NBA's All-Star weekend. And the NBA All-Star is in such a weird spot right now. Last year, they tried to do something new. They had a new format. It was 4 different teams. And the goal was to try to make it competitive once again, to get that fire back, make it entertaining to watch, even for the hardcores. Because casuals, they're going to be tuned in regardless. They can see all the stars. But for the hardcore fans, the guys watching every game, the All Star game is not high on their list because it just doesn't have that same competitive fire. And maybe it never truly will as a celebration of the game. But there have been calls to try to just do something different with it. And that's what the NBA tried to do last year. But even then, it just felt like there was some sort of apathy about the game. It felt like people still just didn't care. There were people who watched it and said it was better than the games in years past because of that new format and the way that these shorter games they got guys motivated. But there was still a general sense of apathy around it. However, one thing that has been brought up when it comes to that NBA All-Star discussion is a one-on-one tournament. And now we are hearing from one of the best players in the world, a top 3 player that defined the 2010s, and he's saying he would be willing to participate. That's big. This is not only one of the biggest stars on the court, but one of the biggest stars off of it as well for the name value that he brings. So having him be bought into this tournament, that's huge because it's one thing if you do this one-on-one tournament and you've got a bunch of B tier stars, or even worse, you got some role players in there, and that's the only guys participating. That's not going to draw everybody in. Sure, it would be interesting. I would honestly be really invested to see the role players competing, but with a change like that, if you want the casuals to be bought in to say, hey, you know what? I like this idea. It's new, it's unique, it's intriguing. Let's see how it goes. You've got to get someone like KD on board with it. And so for him to say that he would be willing to do it, that is huge. And now I think maybe the NBA, they start to think about it a little bit because, yes, we've been hearing about this in circles from guys on Reddit, guys on social media. But now we're getting confirmation from a top NBA star who would want to do it. That's entirely different levels of persuasion. Because you're a business, right? As the NBA, you are an organization. You want that profit first. Are you going to be more likely to listen to the fans? Even though, as a celebration of the game, I think fans can be involved to a certain extent. And heck, that's what I'm doing. Or are you going to listen to KD? I think that's simply going to have more leverage if you're the NBA. But with that being said, should they add a one-on-one tournament? And my answer, absolutely. I 1000% believe they should add this. There's a reason we got fans talking about it. There's a reason KD would want to do it. And in my opinion, it really takes you to a point where you are truly celebrating the game of basketball. Because that's what All-Star Weekend is all about. It's about celebrating basketball. Most importantly, it's about celebrating the NBA. And so with that, of course, it makes sense to have a general game. But think about everybody around the world playing basketball. They're not always going to have these big leagues, these big games, 5-on-5, with a ton of guys on the bench as well. A lot of times you're going to find yourself in a pickup game. And maybe that is 5-on-5, but maybe it's shorter. Maybe it's 3-on-3 or 2-on-2, or even you're just 1-on-1 with some of your buddies. Those are some of the best memories you can have playing basketball. Those are some of the best memories I've had playing basketball. And that's a very, very big part of the game. So, if you're the NBA and you want to truly celebrate the game of basketball, I think not only having the All-Star game, but also having this tournament, I think that would be huge. Because then, that's like everybody can kind of see themselves, they can put themselves in the shoes of these guys. They're never going to be an NBA player, but they played one-on-one before. And I think that's huge for a connection there. Because with the All-Star game, we've been seeing some apathy. We've been seeing people who, no matter what they do, they just don't care. But if you can put yourself in the player's shoes and think of times when you've had one-on-ones, when you've just been playing games, a pickup with your buddies, or at the local gym or fitness center, that's going to be interesting to watch. And I think it also does provide not just the connection, but the entertainment value as well. I would 1000% be interested in seeing someone who, let's say Kyrie Irving, uber skilled. There are not many guys with more talent in league history than him, especially when it comes to something like ball handling. But at his size, how would he do against someone like Kevin Durant? And then you can add that backstory. They were together on the Brooklyn Nets. You've got these storylines too with it, as well as these clashing styles. So, on one hand, when you've got a clashing style, that's immediately interesting, especially because a one on one environment, that's not something you see very often in the NBA. Most you're going to see is on an ISO. So, you've got the short, elite ball handler against maybe the more stoic rim protector. Or even if you would say do it by position to make it more fair in terms of height and stature, you got the point guards on the point guards. That's going to be drastically different than the small forwards on the small forwards or the centers on the centers. You've got so many kinds of matchups there. And then you've got narrative storylines to it as well. Imagine LeBron versus Curry. These two guys who are battling year after year in the NBA Finals. They define the 2010s alongside the aforementioned KD. Imagine them having a battle one on one. Nobody else around. Two of the best to ever step foot on a court. That's interesting. Damian Lillard versus Steph Curry, the two shooters. Trae Young versus Damian Lillard, the guys from deep, deep range. Karl Anthony Towns versus Julius Randle, those two guys who got traded for each other in a blockbuster move. Cat thought he was going to be a Timberwolves franchise lifer, but they decided to move on from him in favor of Julius Randle to have that matchup. There's so much you could do there. Tyrese Halliburton versus SGA, finals rematch, but this time it's just mano a mano, point guard on point guard. That's, of course, when Tyrese is healthy. And speaking of health, how about Jason Tatum versus Jaylen Brown? They said those two styles couldn't work together. Then they won a title. But what if now they're playing against each other? There's so much that you could do there. I think absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the NBA should add a one-on-one tournament. I'm invested. Kevin Durant, a superstar in the league, is invested, and there's a lot of fans who are invested as well. So, if we have established that the NBA should do it, at least in my opinion, let me know in the comments if you disagree, if you got another opinion, or maybe just another point you'd like to bring up. How should they do this? Because recently, not a lot of people are paying attention to the All-Star game itself, or even the dunk contest for that matter. I love the 3-point contest. I'll watch the All-Star game. I'll watch the dunk contest. But not everything, gets me on the edge of my seat. So would they take out something, or would they simply add this? I think the easiest move is simply to add this. Because, you can't just entirely take away tradition, take away the All-Star game completely, right? This would be its own separate thing, but you have to promote it as a big deal. You have to promote it as not just this secondary thing like, hey, we're also doing a one-on-one tournament. You've got to promote it as something special because I think it really has the potential to be special. And I just thought about this part. Imagine the atmosphere there. Because when you got 5-on-5 going on in an NBA game, you've got all the players communicating, but in this environment, most communication you're going to get is a little bit of trash talk. And surrounding that, you're just going to have fans cheering for the guy they want to win that matchup. And I think that would just be such a unique and interesting atmosphere. One that I would love to see, one that I truly, truly want to see. But that is at its most possible if the NBA decides that they want to promote this. They want to say, hey, you should be interested in this. Here's why. We got special matchups. We got intriguing storylines going into it. Who is the best pure one-on-one player in the NBA? Is it going to correlate with dominance like a Jokic or an SGA? Or is it going to be something surprising? Who's going to go on a tournament run? There's so much you can do with it. The NBA needs to add a one-on-one tournament, in my opinion. I think it could truly be very, very special. And Kevin Durant feels the same. Now, last thing here, let's talk about that cash prize. $1 million is what he said he'd be willing to participate in. I think that's a very worthwhile investment for the NBA. First of all, of course, you got the factor of this is a company, an organization that's making so much money. And, you sell tickets to this now, that's going to be some more income. And so you've got money coming from all kinds of different directions. You've got more than enough to be willing to invest $1 million into this. And then you can make shirts too, for these specific matchups. A Braun versus Curry shirt, that would do numbers. KD, Kyrie, Jokic, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. Remember that MVP race a couple years ago? Westbrook, KD. So much intrigue there. Jason Tatum versus Jaylen Brown. You could sell those matchup shirts, or like a poster. Same thing they'll do with like professional wrestling or UFC, where they've got these match cards. Then they got the main event, and that's some people like as a piece of memorabilia. I think that'd be very, very interesting, and just another way to make some income because you're a business, right? You want to make income. I think you can absolutely do that. And so if you're the NBA, I think that might even be the biggest factor. And secondly, in having that price tag, it's not going to persuade a superstar making 50 million a year. If they want to play, they will. If they don't, they won't. But what it is going to do is get everybody else bought in. And that can be even more magical. You've got to have the star power, but you've also got to have guys who are chasing that 1 million, who are going to be willing to put their bodies on the line to make that 1 million. Because that energy can transfer over to the fans. They can see that the players care. So therefore, they have a reason to care. I think that's something you see with the All Star game. The players, they're having fun, right? They care in that sense, but there's not that competitive fire. But you get a role player out there, a guy making the NBA minimum. He wants that $1 million. He's going to do everything he can to get that 1 mil. And so I think that energy could really transfer and make it an even more special environment. So overall, whether it's income, star power, getting eyes on the product, the entertainment of it, I think the NBA really, really should add a one-on-one tournament. And when you got a superstar like KD backing that up, saying that he would participate, I think that's huge. And I think that means if you're the NBA, you have to start looking at it. Will it happen? Only time will tell. But if you want eyes on All Star Weekend, I think this is something that you absolutely have to look into. It takes you back to the roots of basketball playing pickup with your friends as well. There are so many reasons to do it and not many not to. So, NBA, the ball is in your court. What will you do with it?